Hello and welcome to Tournament Poker Project from Essex. My name is Jon.
And I'm Jon Tain.
And we are two recreational poker players, and this is our journey, our learning journey to get good enough at poker to go and crush the World Series of poker. We're not professionals yet, and maybe we never will be, but we want to get good enough to compete, don't we, Tain? That's the plan.
Yeah, good enough to make some of the old stuff stick that keeps getting pushed out with all this new stuff. So it's all there at once. And then when we sit down, people are scared of us.
Scared? So I think they'd be scared of you anyway, Tain. You look a little bit, sometimes, if you don't know you look a bit like a thug sometimes.
Yeah, especially when I get my insane in the Tain t-shirts made up.
Insane
in the membrane, and then insane in the Tain.
Insane in the Tain. That's awesome. So what's been going on? You've been studying much? You've been playing much? What's happening?
I'm having a bit of a lull, and I'll be honest, I am shocked at how not being in full practice, even just reading or listening or something, has made some of my games suffer a little bit. Like it's noticeable. And the thing is, some stuff is still good. Some stuff is stuck. Some parts of hand reading, I'll sit down and I'm fist pumping because I'm like, I knew that. I've read it. I've read the action. I've read the player. I've read how the action went. And then the next hand, I'll do something completely stupid. And I'm like, how have I allowed that to happen? Like, what part of my game has just donked? Like, I'm playing a big tournament. What was it? 1,000 runners. I think it had like 15k guaranteed. I got up to 20th in chips, not a million miles from the bubble. It was far enough from the bubble that ICM weren't enough to stop me playing like an idiot, but I weren't a million miles from the bubble. And I'm thinking, I'm all right. I'm in the cash. If I just fold, I probably will min cash. So if I just keep ticking it over, I'm probably going to cash all right. And then just some absolute idiotic hand comes in, and I go from like 70 big blinds down to 12, just like that. And it was a stupid bet. And it's like, I look back and I think, I don't know what computed wrong there. Yeah, there's two little bits of wire that have disconnected in my brief 1.5 weeks off. So anyway, how's things with you?
Yeah, all right. I just want to say I don't condone just folding your way to the money. That's sad. Come on, you're better than that. Like, especially if you're 20th in chips out of like a load of hundreds of people. That's especially as the bubble comes, like the soft bubble. You're not quite right on it yet, but you're getting there. People do start thinking about folding and checking a lot more, and that's the time to put the pressure on. So don't beat yourself up too much. It could have been just unlucky, running into someone that had it or whatever. But I'm good, man. So I went into that satellite that I was telling you about.
Yes.
So a £10 rebuy, and then there was like an add-on, and you could double rebuy as well. So you'd actually end up with you end up paying £20 thing. But anyway, I ended up paying 50 and then won a seat. So I won one of the 5 seats available into the next step satellite. So it's like a 3-step thing. So through step 1, which I'm chuffed about, then on to step 2. Step 3, if you get a seat, if you win one of the packages in that, it's a package to go and play at the WPT in Las Vegas. And I've only done step 1. I've got such a long way to go, but I cannot stop fantasizing about flying out to Vegas and playing in this tournament, like what it would feel like, what day one would be like, how I'd feel it myself. Would I be studying first? Would I just be meditating? And I'm just doing what I shouldn't be, which is completely letting the fantasy take me away from just thinking it's another game. I need to approach it. I need to win a seat in the next step, and that's it at the moment. Let's focus on winning and keeping my mind in the here and now. But hey ho, it's been fun fantasizing about it anyway.
Yeah, you're getting a bit of a name for yourself as a satellite guru down there.
Well, I mean, I've played 3 satellites down there, and I've got a seat in 2. So I suppose that's pretty good going. I would say that I don't think that's a sustainable ROI for me. But
Yeah,
it
of course
is
it is.
nice. It is nice pretending that I'm just excellent at satellites.
But this isn't tournaments where like 30% of the field are going to get a seat. This is like 50, 60, 70 runners and 5 and get a seat. I mean, you're really having to last past.
For the other ones, the other two, but this one that I played this week, there was only 2 tables.
Oh, really?
So it was a big overlay. So, not big. I think they gave away 750 quid's worth of seats, and I think they had something like 550 quid's worth of entry money. So it was quite an overlay. 2 tables, but there was a hell of a lot of rebuys. That's why everyone was just burning through it. So it was pretty mental for the first sort of 3 hours, and then it really slowed down. And then once you was on that final table, it became this completely different game where we're all sitting there. I was second from shortest stack, so I was kind of being extremely cautious. I folded pocket 10s at one point because of someone opening in front of me. I folded pocket 9s when it was an overpair to the flop, when there was 2 other players in the pot betting and calling in front of me. It was just playing a very, very tight game, and it worked. I won a seat, and I was the short stack. Apart from the guy that went out, obviously, I was the shortest stack that won a seat, which I'm quite proud of. I think that's kind of the way to go with satellites. You don't really want a huge stack by the end of it, because then you've taken too many unnecessary risks.
Yeah, that is perfect strategy.
Yeah, so I'm pretty chuffed with it. It's just the more and more I play, like especially live, it makes me realise how much I love live poker, and that all of my learnings online and studying and all the way I'm doing it is all about memorising and being able to play live. I don't want to have to remember anything or sort of have charts up or anything like that. I just want to be able to play live on everything's geared towards those big ones in Vegas, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it's such a different experience live. It's so much more time to think. You can see people's faces. I love the extra layers that come with live play.
I do.
I was just gonna say, even though some of them layers are to my own detriment.
Right.
So
I love that. Yeah, online I can make notes on people, obviously, but I will never associate any style of play or exploitable mistake that they're making regularly to a player name, like an online name. But in person, there'll be people I've played last year, and when I sit back at the table with them, I'll remember quite a lot of things about the way they played, like if they were loose or whatever. So it seems that I'm good at associating that sort of data, like frequencies or mistakes or exploitable tendencies, with an actual person and their face, But I can't do that online. I just can't do it online. I just don't seem to be able to relate to the name. I see a name and I think, oh yeah, I feel like I recognise the name. Couldn't tell you anything about them, what they're like or anything.
Yeah, I've definitely played against this seat 1 before, who we've got in front of us, and Ubrix. I played against him.
He's played against Ubrix. Yeah, he's really, really good. Underrated.
But yeah, one of the things that they talk about on a lot of other podcasts, which is good advice, is when you see a passive player suddenly become aggressive? Yeah, I mean, like literally just put your hands down and relinquish power. That someone who's just check and never putting money in the pot of their own accord, who all of a sudden is raising you, as they're gonna have it. So unless you've got it better, just get it away. But in live play,
aces.
Well, this is it. But sometimes you just miss that. Sometimes you accidentally think, they're playing passively when you've missed a few of their actions, things like that. But live, you physically see that person shuffle in their seat a little bit, and all of a sudden they're counting their chips. So they're like the croak in their voice that you've been trying to listen to for the last half hour is suddenly a bellowing boom that you could hear from the toilets. Just that kind of, and people don't realize they've been playing so passively, waiting for this moment. They just can't. They're not good enough to control themselves. I mean, if they were good enough, they wouldn't be playing that way.
That's why it doesn't work. I think as the stakes go up, or as you get deeper in the MTTs, and you're generally left with some of the better players, that's why it just doesn't work playing only the very best of of cards, because everyone just knows what you've got, and they'll just get out of the way, or or they'll have you. There'll be like an ace on the board, and they know you've got one, and they've just hit a set, and they'll you can't then fold your ace king when there's an ace on the board. You've got to play it, and yeah, you might get lucky, but I don't think it's a profitable way to play.
No. And I've looked at some of my stats in the last month, and most of my profit, almost all of my profit, isn't from huge, massive wins on hands that were on the cusp, or set versus set or anything like that. Even though you do get some good solid profit from them kind of hands, it's more from steals and well placed bluffs, but on the flop, that's all I won. An extra bet, that kind of thing, and it's just an accumulation of lots and lots of them hands, because you know what you're doing, or well, I hope I know what I'm doing with the ranges that I'm playing, and I know the best places to steal. And it's only the good times when you've actually got solid value, or you've got solid value in your range against the right player, that you get them extra big wins. But yeah, trying to step up.
Yeah, let's jump into a hand. So yeah, go for it then, Tain. Do you want to talk us through? This is a hand that I played, but if you want to kind of host us through.
Yeah, so anyone listening, we are doing a little switcheroo to see if it changes or improves the delivery. So I'm going to be reading a hand that Jon has played, and this is fresh eyes. All I've seen so far is that Jon is sitting on the button with ace of clubs, 10 of spades, and let's try working out where we're at. So blinds are 800, 1,600. So judging by that, we're fairly moderately through a
we're
multi-table tournament.
I think we're about 3 or 4 tables from the final table.
Cool. And this is the stage. The blinds are next up is 1,000, 2,000. I think that's when they're going to start getting a bit jumpy. We are sitting with just under 60,000, 58,000. It's 4,000 in the starting pot, so we're looking at an M of 15.
14 and a half.
Person to the right of us only has 37,000 roughly, so they're sitting with an M of about 9. People to the left of us in the blinds, one of them's massive, sitting there with an M of 30. Blimey. They're in the big blind, so you've got to expect some action from them. Small blind is sitting with an M of exactly 11. So I wouldn't expect anything from them, and if you see some life from them, it might just be a shove anyway, but it could also be quite strong. We've had folds from early position round to the hijack, and they're the last player. They are putting some money in, sitting there with an M. They've got just over our stack, so an extra 10,000. So they must have an M of about 17, 18, and they're the initial raiser. They raise it to just over min. So they've put in 3,520. So they've got what I've done, and they've changed their buttons, or they've at least doctored their bet, so it's not exactly 2 big blinds. So 2 big blinds would be 3,200. 2.5 would be 3,600. So they've put 2.4 big blinds in, is my guess, which tells me that they're not a terrible player. They've got at least the noddle to change their bet for whatever reason. That doesn't mean they're a good player, just means they're not a complete fish. They're in the hijack, so
but it's not to say that betting a min bet is a complete fish move. I wouldn't say. No,
it's not the inverse of that. So you could be an absolute pro and still use the min raise buttons, but someone who knows enough to know what to change that. Yeah,
fair enough.
It's unlikely there probably are some fish who just bang in some random numbers, but my guess is that they're playing with they're not playing with the chips as numbers. They're playing with big blinds, and they've raised it 2.4 big blinds, and no one would bother changing the chip stacks to big blinds without being. It doesn't mean they're good, but it means at least they're experienced, and they've probably done enough reading to understand the benefit of doing that. Other people don't find it beneficial. I love it. I can't look at a poker table without it being in big blinds anymore. But other people prefer this. They prefer the nuance. They prefer seeing the extra numbers and understanding that in real value. It depends how the numbers work in your mind.
I always, you know what, the reason because I did start using the big blind, like viewing it as big blinds, but then I thought I need to keep it fresh with the actual chip amounts, because again, I'm all geared towards being able to smash a live tournament. So you can't toggle to big blinds in a live one. So I always keep it like this.
Yeah, and that's definitely true of how I play. I have to convert what people are doing into big blinds.
Yeah.
But it's the main issue is that it's slow, not that it's not beneficial. I actually find it beneficial, even in a pub game, to translate what they've done into big blinds, because it means that I can count up things like the pot quicker.
Yeah, sure.
But it is painstaking. Sometimes it's the blinds that you're playing with are awful to dole up. This is one of the worst examples. 1,600. If they raise it like 4.5, you're literally like, what? Wait. Oh, you know what I mean? You miscount, and the other side is if you then rely on that and you miscount, you might have got it seriously wrong. So it is fraught with danger. But anyway, they're in the hijack, cut-off even. Sorry, excuse me. They're in the cut-off. It's standard raise for the cut-off.
They're in the hijack. They're in the hijack.
Oh, of course, sorry, no, it's because yeah. So they're in hijack. It's a standard raise. They're playing with a fairly decent size of their range here. Aces probably down to, they're playing all their suited aces. They're probably playing most of their offsuit aces as well. Yeah, your ace 10 is good in this position. It is a free bet in my eyes. You've got position as well. It's not saying would you free bet actually? Is there any? What's the benefit of free betting? Because you're actually only strengthening their range. Is that desirable? I would free bet because I want to be pushing out the small and big blinds. Yeah. And I think that's the driving factor, not I actually want to leave the hijack with as wide a range as possible. So out of the balance of the two, one of them's leave the hijack with the biggest range they can. The other side is free bet it to try to get heads up. I'm leaning on free bet.
I like a free bet here as well. It's actually, I think GTO wise, I think that's actually ace 10 offsuit facing a hijack open. A 3-bet is actually considered a bluff 3-bet. I'll have to double check that. Yeah, I think it is. Not that I think if you went 4-bet, you'd probably have to fold it. Is the reason you'd call that a bluff 3-bet? It's not that you hate a call, but if he calls, that actually gives you some good information, and it also has the benefit of meaning that you are the pre-flop aggressor. So you're on the button, so you've got a position. You'll be the pre-flop aggressor, and he's capped his range by just calling your free bet. So for those three reasons, I think a free bet here is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the offsuit's actually significant as well in that for that reason. You're probably blocking most of what you'd want to be calling, other than the stuff that's got you dominated. That's 10,000, something like that. Yeah, there you go. Just shy.
So we bet 9,600. So yeah, so it's round about 3 times the hijacks open there.
Nice. And we see 2 folds, so that is the best outcome to this position, and we only get a call, which is the second best outcome. I'd say a fold there is probably the best thing, but it's not too shabby that we've got a call.
So yes, the hijack who opened calls our 3-bet.
Okay, so just a reminder, we're sitting there with the ace of clubs, 10 of spades, and we have got a flop now of 10 of hearts, 6 of diamonds, 3 of spades, rainbow, 10 3 6, not connected, nothing fancy. It's a very dynamic board. The pot is just over 23,000. We are now sitting with 48,000, and the villain is sitting with 60,000.
So what's the SPR?
2. Our SPR, we're the effective stack. SPR is 2, which is lovely because we are in. If they bet, we're in potential jamming territory. So what would our strategy be? We want to. We want to stack off really, Yes, we've got a hand that's good now, and it probably won't be. Oh, well, I don't know, because you've got the ace. There's only kings, queens, jacks that could come out and upset you. And again, they need to have hit that. So yeah, if the SPR is low enough, or you're just getting it in.
The thing is, this is a little bit of a grey area, I think, because we 3-bet pre-flop and got the call. The pot is really big compared to what it would be if it was just opened and called, right? It's really, really big. Having a 15M pre-flop, right, and we were the shortest stack out of the two people left in it. A 15M is way too big an M to be thinking about just stacking off with top pair. But because of the 3-bet, it's now, well, actually, SPR's 2, and a rule of thumb is that you would stack off with top pair, especially with a top kicker with it, if you've got an SPR between 0 and 3. So it's kind of like we're caught between two opposing or conflicting trains of thought or ideas, which one being, we want to get all the chips in now because we've got an SPR2, and the other being, well, we've got 15M pre-flop. We could still get away from this and have an M of 12, which is more than enough at this stage of the tournament. That's really quite healthy generally. We'd, looking at this table, we'd be average kind of stack. We wouldn't be at the bottom and we wouldn't be at the top. So they're kind of two conflicting things. So although it is an auto stack off compared to SPR, considering SPR, I don't think it's like, let's just get it in, because you don't need to. You could almost play it a little bit more cautiously and see how it goes.
I get that. I don't know how much I'd rely on it per se, because I'm thinking at this stage the only hands that are beating you are tens, which you've got one of them, so it makes having tens incredibly hard. A pair of threes and a pair of sixes. A pair of threes, I think, is too fishy for them to be calling the 3-bet, and a pair of sixes probably should be, but I don't want to rule out them having a pair of sixes just because I don't know the quality of player. There's a lot of players that would call a 3-bet, even though they're out of position with a rubbish hand and you're not deep enough to set mine. That doesn't mean they wouldn't do it. But the truth is, I'm not really considering sets, because everything that applies to you being cautious about your SPR applies to them having hands that kind of want to get it in pre-flop. If you've got threes, you want to get it in pre-flop against ace 10, because it probably, you're ahead. It's the only chance you're going to have of being ahead. I mean, they're not pushed to do that with their stack, but if they're raising anyway and calling a 3-bet,
I don't think he'd push with threes or sixes, because his M's way too big, and I've just 3-bet him. He's got to be a little bit cautious. But what about things like a pair of like pocket jacks, pocket queens?
That's what I'm getting onto. So that is the hands that I've eliminated from their range. I don't think they've got jacks or queens for certain, because they're the kind of hands that they'd want to protect with that 4-bet shove. They're the hands that if I get it in there, the chances are they're folding and I'm picking up a healthy 3-betted pot. If they call, I'm probably in good shape, 50-50 at worst, against most hands that it's only aces and kings better. I do see aces and kings as slow playing, and I also see any of the other ropey hands, but you're ahead of every other hand. You're ahead of ace queen, ace jack, ace king that might have just called.
Is it fair to say then that really the only hands that we are behind at the moment is pocket aces and pocket kings?
Yes, that's kind of where I'm going. They might have tens. I just think it's a hard hand for them to hit, so I'm just going to I'm going to disregard it basically. And for us, any picture card is bad. There's not too many of them out there, but that doesn't change things. They're the most likely holdings, so we'll see what their action is, and they do check. But then you're the pre-flop aggressor, so even if they've got the aces and kings, they're checking. They'd protect their checking range with that. So I'm not over betting shove.
So what do you think here then? So we've been checked to. We've got, this is exactly what we wanted. Top pair of our ace kicker. It's a rainbow board. It's not that dynamic, is it, at all? Really, it's 10-6-3. There's a potential Well, 4-5, I don't think so. You know, if they did bet 4-5, like if they opened with 4-5 pre-flop, I don't suspect they're calling a 3-bet with it. Maybe they are if it's suited. It's probably one to call and have that lower piece of the board. So it's there. It is a concern, but it's not completed yet. They've not made a straight. So this is, to me, this is a bet all day long, and probably quite a small one. I want them to continue with hands that aren't made yet. You know, I want them to continue with maybe something like Jack Queen, that's got some backdoor possibilities, and two overcards to the board that they might feel like they can float and see what happens on the turn. So I'd want to call bet small enough for them to actually continue with those sorts of holdings.
Yeah, I'm thinking two things. First of all, what kind of bet would get calls from King 10, Queen 10? Which I think you can probably bet bigger from that to get value out of them hands.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it is how many, if we're happy for Queen Jack to come along for the ride, how many turn cards are good for our range compared to how many turn cards are bad for our range. So if we see any picture card, so if we see a Queen, a Jack, King, we're obviously worried that they've hit that, but the chances are they haven't. Even though it's their most likely holding, there's still more chance that they haven't hit than they have. So would that be a double scare card for us to be holding as well? Is it so, for instance, they checked you again, and I imagine even if they've hit, they check him. If we then bet, can we just assume that we're only getting calls from hands that are now beating us?
What, on this flop?
No, yeah, I'm thinking ahead for the turn. What our action would be for the turn. So if we're betting small to allow cards to come through on the turn,
yeah.
If a picture card comes,
that might be trickier.
Are we now in a position? So basically, if we're going to struggle to bet any picture card, are there enough cards in the rest of the pack, 7 and below, for instance, 8 and below, that we're happy with, that we can continue betting for value? Or are we putting ourselves in a position where we probably should get the money in now because most turn cards are not going to help us? I think we do have enough of the deck that we can bet small for value.
Okay.
And
what
just
size?
hope. Yeah,
what hope size it's not. Do you like?
I mean, my go-to's third of the pot, so about 7,000. 8,000. Perfect.
Yeah, I'll pop in 8,000. It's funny actually how consistent our train of thought is. You say these figures and it's like, yep, that's pretty much what I bet.
Really?
So yeah, I do bet 8,000. Yeah, I like your thinking. Fine. So,
and they've just called. Now that says that should mean they feel they've got moderate value. They could be doing it speculatively, and we'll find that out on the next street. But that should say that they think they've got speculative value. So that could be 9s, could be 8s. It could be King 10, Queen 10, which is superb if it's the case.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it doubles down on whatever the next card would be. That's a Jack. Right, so we've just had the turn come down. That's the Jack of diamonds. So that's now 2 diamonds to the board. So if they did have that as a back draw, it's now a full draw. So the board is now Jack of diamonds, 10 of hearts, 6 of diamonds, 3 of spades, 2 diamonds out there. We're sitting there with ace of clubs, 10 of spades. So we've got top pair, top kicker. Second pair now, sorry, top kicker. We are sitting on the button. There is just under 40,000 in the pot. We're sitting there with just over 40,000, so we've basically got a pot bet in us, and we're the effective stack. So the action is on the hijack, who checkaroos, and they check again. Now they're doing that with their strongest and their weakest hand. They should be checking that 100% range, I'd imagine. I can't imagine there's anything that they feel needs to be donkey. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a worry. I mean, we're talking about Queen Jack, you know, that's one of the likely holds, isn't it? King Queen, Queen Jack, King Jack. Maybe even Ace Jack, you know, he might have opened with that and just flat called. So yeah,
So
it is a worry.
if we were saying we're targeting overcards as
Mhm.
well as weaker tens, they've still got ace 10 for a chop, but king 10, queen 10, king queen. They've got an up and down straight, but that's a bit of a gamble. They've still got ace king, ace queen. There are some hands that have now got there.
Yeah, and there's some. It feels like, I mean, we could probably do the maths, but it feels like half the hands have you know, got something, you know, hit that jack. Half the hands haven't. You know, like there's still, like you say, the king 10, queen 10, but jack 10's now loving life. Even, you know, queen jack, king jack, loving life. So it feels like a bit like, well, this is now a marginal situation. And so my thinking is let's check this behind.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I think I'm agreeing. I'm working out if we continued with our third pot bet, would a king, I'm sure a king 10 and a queen 10 had still come along despite the jack. They might be a bit more cautious about it. I can't imagine king 10 putting it away. If they've called the fact that you bet the flop, the jack didn't necessarily mean anything, especially if you continue your third bet sizing. There's no reason to think that the jack improved you necessarily.
It feels
But
like, sorry,
yeah, so
Karen.
I was going to say, but do we want to open this up to more betting? Do we want to open it up to a check raise when the
It
hands
just,
that we were targeting might now stop calling?
yeah, yeah. It just feels risky. It just feels like we're so deep in this tournament. You know, we've got to start considering ICM a little bit. You know, we're probably too far from the final table to start thinking about closing up. But you know, second pair now on the board. He's checked behind. That could be that he's got that king queen. He's got that open ended, or he's, you know, still got a 10, but with a, you know, queen 10 or something. But it could also be that he's now, you know, slow playing top pair, and this is exactly why he floated the flop, and he's waiting. And if he is slow playing something that beats us, he's not going to be able to check again on the river, because that's his last chance to get value. If we check behind here, he knows we're probably going to check the river as well. And if he is beaten, if he's now got that jack, for instance, he would have to bet the river. So I feel like this is a check this turn, see what he does on the river, and then act accordingly.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, the only thing I'm I've got at the back of my mind, other than Jack 10, which at this stage is a monster, because I don't think they've got any of the sets. So top two pair is as good as they could have.
Mm-hmm.
They'd want to bet that because it's exposed. It's not. It's the board is still quite dynamic. But then King Queen, King Jack, Queen Jack, Ace Jack. They're not. They're not overly worried about additional cards. I'm just talking through to myself, like, would they be slow playing if they've just spiked top pair? Or do they feel, actually, I've got top pair now, but there are additional cards that could make that a lot worse? And I don't know,
Could be. I mean,
because
yeah,
most of their holdings are them cards. Like, we're
yeah,
blocking the
exactly.
ace.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, again, it's almost 50-50, and it's like, do we want to start really bloating this pot almost to the point where if we make a bet on this turn, which would have to be somewhere in the region of a third pot, maybe even half, we're going to have like a half pot bet on the end, and if he decides to jam, we're going to have to call it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it's harder for him to make a full pot sized jam on the river. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. Maybe there's no way. Maybe it's one of those things where almost no way out of it. But I think I could get away from it if he jammed.
Yeah, I think we were always worried about the jack, like any picture card coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that if they've just hit ace jack, king jack, queen jack, there's very few river cards that they're worried about compared to ones that they're happy to continue. So they would continue their passive checking. And then yeah, I completely agree that a good hand will want to disguise it to check, maybe even just check call rather than a check raise, because they feel that there's good value, and then maybe come out with a small bet on the river. But yeah, so check behind. I'm agreeing with. I would probably have bet this, continued my third pot bet, and I think that's a mistake. So let's go with a check.
I do indeed check.
Worst possible card has come to the river to haunt us. It's the Jack of Spades.
You think that's the worst possible card? I like the Jack of Spades here.
Means it's less likely they got it.
I think it's less likely they got it, and he checks. This to me is exactly what I wanted. When I checked behind on the turn, I wanted to see what the river brings. Most, like, obviously the card, but most importantly what he does. This is, if he's got a jack, he's now got, he's now hit trips, and he's checked, right? He hasn't got the jack. Come on. There's no way, like, this is his last chance to get some decent value, right? There's the pot is the same size as my stack. He knows that I would have to call something here. If he put in 10,000, 12,000, I'd have to call it if I've got a 10. If he had another jack, he would be betting here, and he checks.
Yeah.
This is what I want. This is what I wanted to happen.
100%. I've relinquished my idea that this was a bad card.
It's not bad. It's good. But what do you do? What do you do? Do we take the risk? I mean, I was playing cautiously. We don't want to inflate the pot. This has kind of given me the confidence to go for some thin value here. It feels like, this guy's not got a jack. What he has got, I don't know. Hopefully, like you say, it's one of those tens.
So I reckon I agree with your logic. So if the jack and the check mean that they've not got the jack, and we're back to targeting value, we go one below what we've got, king 10. Are they calling anything with two jacks out there? Yes, because you checked behind on the turn when it's so easy to continue your betting.
Yeah, this is perfect for that reason. Exactly.
Yeah, so, I think we're running out of hands for them to be calling with, but that doesn't make a difference because they're folding.
If we bet small enough, then it's hard for them not to call. There's like 40,000 in the pot, or just shy of 40,000 in the pot. I've got 40,000 on stack. The villain's got 52. This is a really big pot to be winning. Even if he had ace high and we bet something like 8,000, I think we could squeeze that out of him. He'd have to see, are they just bluff catching?
Yeah.
It feels like there's hands, queen 10, king 10, maybe even ace 10. Well, I don't think so. I think he would have gone over at the top of us on the flop.
I can see.
It feels like there's a few, and even like the ace highs, it feels like would call an amount. So this to me is like thin value time, and it's trying to work out how much they would call.
Yeah, I mean, you got your ace 3, your ace 6. I think they're in their range. They shouldn't be, but maybe they are if they're suited.
They could be, yeah, absolutely.
Especially if they had, it feels nice. If they've got like ace 3 of diamonds, that'd be a lovely turn to just check back and see if you get lucky and you think, well, let's just call it. Okay, I'm on board, and
okay,
I'd be betting less than 10k.
Okay, yeah, that's less than 10k seems good. I mean, if we were to try and push it to like 15k, it could. The thing is, when you bet a bit bigger, it can make it look like a bluff. and he's, we want him to be bluff catching. So it could be that if we make it look more like a bluff by betting a bit bigger, he would call it. But this later stage in the tournament, with some softer players still out there, I think we'd be scaring a lot of people away. So yeah, something in the region of maybe 8,000-9,000 seems good.
Oh, even cheekier, 6,400.
Yeah, it's off on tiny. Okay, so what is that?
Yeah.
What is that as a percentage of the pot? That's really small, isn't it? It's like a fifth of a sixth of the pot. So I've gone really small. I'm really trying to get a call out of those cards that just floated, that have just whiffed completely now. Trying to squeeze it. Maybe I could have gotten a bit bigger. It feels like, yeah, I don't know. I think I was just desperate to try and get a bit. I think I felt like I knew what was happening now. He hasn't got a jack. I've got this hand locked. I just desperately want to get a little bit of thin value, so I bet 6-4.
So what would you do if they jammed? Because you have opened the betting now, so they've got another opportunity to bluff at it, despite showing no inclination to have any bluffs at any point. They're now last to act unless they bet.
If they jam over the top, or even just raise over the top, I'm going to be horrified, and it's just going to be horrible. I feel so confident about them not having the jack and me having this hand locked. I think I would have to call if they check raise. If they've got a jack or a hand that beats me here, surely they wouldn't have risked just checking. I checked behind on the turn. They must know there's a strong likelihood if they check the river with a really strong hand, I'm just going to check behind and they're not getting the value that they should be getting. So it feels like a check raise from the villain here is going to be, there's going to be a lot of bluffs. Things like the king queen is a good one, that on the turn was suddenly like, hey, I've got an open-ended here, but then obviously can't bet the river immediately, or could bet the river. I suppose you could have bluffed the river.
Yeah,
probably should have bluffed the river, in all honesty. I think I'd have been more scared of him just bluffing outright on the river when he was first to act, because that way he could have feigned that he checked the turn because he hit one of his cards that he was floating with, but shit, hero's now checked behind on the turn, right, let's go bigger on the river. It looks like a believable bluff. So if he did have some sort of bluffing combination here, he probably should have done it as the first bet and not a check raise. I would say check raise, just, I'd hate it, but I'd make a crying call. Is the answer to your question.
Cool. Okay, so just as a final reminder before we have the big drum roll, we have got ace of clubs, 10 of spades, and the board starts finishes 10 3 6 jack jack, no flush draws. So we're sitting there with second pair, but there are 2 jacks over ours. We have done a cheeky little, let's call it a 1/6 bet, 1/6 pot bet, and we're seeing if the hijack folds or just calls. They do a call. I mean, that's you've got to think you're ahead there, Bosh. And they called with pocket fours. Now, the only wheel it back in, and people can't see it at home, I'm doing a fish action, trying to pull the fish in. I was unsure if sixes were in their range given their action, and we said for certain that threes really shouldn't have been in their range. But the fact that they've now put down some fours, the sixes were, so that.
Well, here's an interesting take on this, right? He was actually over 16M pre-flop. So he's open with pocket fours is perfectly acceptable. From there, you can open with as low as pocket threes. Calling with pocket fours or pocket threes, calling a 3-bet, I'm not sure that is quite so. It probably is. You probably should do it. I mean, he'd already put in 3, so he had to put in another 6,000. Another 6,000 to win my 40-something thousand stack. So actually, if he's playing to hit a set, then no, he hasn't got the odds to call that 3-bet. But
No,
whether or not he should be calling a 3-bet or not, for other reasons, like maybe, I don't know, when the board's lower, he could maybe bet that a bit more and get me off of it. I don't know, and that's something I would need to study. It feels a bit borderline.
no, I mean, from what I remember of free betting ranges and defense ranges, 4s are never in a calling range ever.
Okay.
Just because even when you're set mining, you need to have like 100 big blinds effective as well. So not even just his stack, like the effective stack needs to be like 100, because you need to be winning serious match just to add up. Even when you hit your set, you might not get stacks.
No,
So,
well, this is it. And best case scenario, you do stack your opponent. You've got to have something like 10 times the bet in their stack that you can win to make it minimally worth it. So the fact that that's only if they actually stack off to you when you hit your set. So yeah, like it doesn't even qualify on that level. So yeah, it probably isn't a call, is it? It isn't a 3-bet call.
no, he could have shoved. I don't know if he's just a little on the too deep side for that to be a shove, but 4s are very often, or 5s at least, are very often in the shove bluffing range. Whether it's because basically the other consideration for them is you are on the button, so you have the widest range at this point. Well, one of the widest ranges at this point. So continuing with 4s isn't necessarily as egregious as against an early position opener, but it's just never a call, because that turns it immediately into basically a bluff set mine, and you're just in bad shape. Like, you really are in bad shape across so many levels. You're never good. There is no board other than a board with a 4 in that you are comfortable with. Why would you ever do that out of position? And what he's calling with, I know the flop's a bit braggy, but 10-3-6, the whole, it doesn't even matter. Like, what are you calling with your 4s for? Like, you can't improve. There are no cards that will come on that turn when you've called that will improve your hand. Well,
no,
maybe.
but I suppose the fact that I 3-bet, there aren't loads of 10s in my 3-betting range. That's what I would say. Like, yes, it's one of my bluffing 3-bets, and it ended up turning out for the best. But maybe he's thinking generally you're going to be betting 3-betting ace queen, ace king. So, well, the thing is though, there's all the big pairs as well. But maybe just my line I took once I checked the turn, maybe he felt like, maybe he's not got the big pocket pairs. Maybe he has got ace king, ace queen, and he's actually c-bet bluffed the flop, checked the turn because shit, he's called me, and now I'm sitting there with 2 overcards, and then the small bet on the river was just too tempting. I don't hate it. The only thing I think the villain's done really wrong is potentially call the 3-bet pre-flop. Once he'd made that mistake, he was kind of in it. He was kind of stuck in it. He had to call my relatively small flop bet. There aren't tons of 10s in my 3-betting.
No, but that's not a reason to call. Like, he should have donked. It's the only opportunity he's got to win on that board, and that's a board that benefits his range more than most. So yes, he should have donked straight out the barrel. This is one of the best chances I've got. That's a pretty good flop for me. Take a pot shot. The second one is he cannot improve, so he should not be calling, because almost every single card bar 4. So there is 45 cards that can come that are not good for him, 2 cards that are good. That's a terrible odds. So he should be raising, or he should be folding. Like, you don't call with knowing full well that you are going to have a worse hand very, very shortly. Like, the value of his hand will go down with almost every single turn. So calling is bad. It achieves he gets no new information. You've still got all your bluffs, but all your best hands in. Like, so raise if that's his action, that the flop is a raise. But the truth is, he shouldn't have been in that position. He should have donked, and when he didn't, he should have folded. Is how I feel he should have played that. The 4s had no place calling. I mean, it's got 2 overs, and it's a really raggy board. That's why you can't be playing a pair of 4s out of position.
Yeah.
In a raised pot as well. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more it's, why are you bloating a pot?
Well, yay
So
for me anyway. I went up
well, yay
to
for you, but yeah, bro.
86,000 after that pot, and went on to win the World Series of Poker main event.
Wait, what I do love is
In
that
future.
all the talking points that this person with a pair of fours, they didn't intend any of it. They're just
No.
playing really rubbish hands and they're playing it really weakly. But
He was
little do
probably
they
just
know.
he's probably just annoyed with my I think I was playing a little bit out of line. I think the table had got too tight, so I was just playing a lot and just happened to have ace 10 on the button when I'd probably been
Yeah,
playing all sorts of crazy hands, and he was just sick of it. Thought, I'm
but
just going to cool you down, you know.
but that's a really good example of how people are trying to respond to someone at the table they're uncomfortable with, but because they've not got the knowledge or the confidence to be raising, they think a call is compromise is the compromise. Okay, yeah. Well, he's been raising with everything, so I'm just going to call with my fours. And
Yeah.
it's like, you don't realise you've actually got yourself into more trouble than if you just folded.
Yeah, exactly. If he thinks I'm bluffing too much, by all means call down when you've got a stronger hand, maybe like a top pair, that if I'm bluffing or overvaluing sort of a lower pair. But really, pocket fours, you could test the water and check raise me on the flop, and then if I call or go over the top with my, well, as we know, it's an ace 10, then that's his indication that actually I have got it this time. Maybe you should stay the hell away.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think a mistake there from the villain.
nice. It's good when that happens.
It's good when that happens. That's what we like.
I love it.
Have we got time for a real quick one? Another quick one?
I do. Let me quickly get this up. So this is very, very, very short action. So I'm throwing a hand out there that has very little going on, only a few streets.
Just a few streets. There's only 4 streets in the whole hand. Any hand.
And it is 2 of them. All right. Okay, it won't be one more.
I'll just while we're just loading that hand, I'm just going to sing a little song for our listeners, our avid listeners. This is a song about loyalty. Okay, you're very lucky listeners. Tane's got the hand up now because that would have been horrendous.
I'm just going to sing.
Awkward for me, awkward for you guys listening.
Going to sing out of key. Ming mang mo, ming mang me. All right.
I was probably going to sing Green Day or something. That's what I know most of the lyrics to.
And as you can tell, this is very successfully shared. Apologies for the technical problems here, everyone. I'm playing on a just share my screen. Can you see everything coming in? So basically what we normally do is we say something like, let's do a quick hand, because we've got a small bit of the pod that we can share, just just 2 streets of action. So what happens is we get technical errors.
We got it. It's up. So shall I talk us through this one then? Because this is a hand that you played, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we are 6-handed. The ante is, well, there's an ante.
So just to say, because I've got it set to big blinds, the blinds and the antes are at the very top, if you can see that, John. So
right, okay, gotcha. So the blinds are 6,000, 12,000 with a 1,500 ante. It's an 8 max, and so the fact there's only 6 players at your table says to me you're pretty deep here. I mean, the size of the blinds would say you're pretty damn deep.
yeah, this was a 1,000 runner, and I'm into the top 30.
Whoa, what, last 30 runners?
Last 30 runners, yeah.
Okay, so this is big then. So
is it 30?
Really
it was definitely in the top 100. Apologies, my memory is shocking, and I've.
Well, the fact that there's only 6 people at the table says to me, usually they're filling up the tables and condensing them down. So if there was a multiple of 7, I suppose there could be a 6 with quite a few tables left, but it's less likely. But yeah, I mean, it's very deep anyway. So you're probably working your way towards the final table, so a bit of ICM consideration there as well, right?
Yeah. Cool.
And you are sitting in the, why can I not see your position?
That helps.
Big blind. You're not the big blind.
Yeah, I'm big blind.
Oh, you are the big blind. Yeah. Okay, the big blind. So what happens then, Tain?
So
we have folds from under the gun +1, and then the guy in the hijacker, the hijacker game bets 3 big blinds. The the cutoff folds, the button folds, and the small blind folds, and we are sitting on the big blind with ace 7, so ace of clubs, 7 of hearts. Yeah, you've got 32 big blinds in your stack. The villain here has got 60, so he's not quite the chip leader at the table, but substantial stack here. But you're both pretty deep. 32 big blinds is pretty decent. That's an M of roughly 12, so 13. So yeah, this is a defend all day long as far as I'm concerned.
So when you say defend,
I'll just flat call.
This is one of the first contentious points. I'm not sure what my A7 will be doing post flop that makes a call better than a free bet. So
okay,
I would, because it's offsuit, we're kind of playing a loner ace. The razors slightly later, but they're not cut off or button, so you have to give some credit to the raise. I'm in a position where I did call. Let's just go through that. So I did call. I feel that a free bet would have been more valuable. A free bet fold.
Okay, a free bet fold.
Yeah, so free bet, if they 4-bet, I'm folding.
Okay, yeah, I can't say I like that too much, but fair enough. I can see why that if you did that, it might actually get a fold there and then. And if they just flat called, a bit about their hand, you could maybe play an ace on the flop quite aggressively, even if they've got like ace 9, ace 10. They might even, that'd be pretty tricky to get them to fold. But yeah, a 3-bet's always got that aggressive, all the benefits that come with being aggressive. But I just don't think, especially this deep, I don't think I would want to inflate the pot that much.
All right.
Especially against someone who's got me well covered.
Just trying to think through, like, if I'm not willing to free bet because I'm cautious, I should be cautious and fold.
No.
I know, I have folded, not necessarily exactly this position. Like if they were 1 or 2 seats earlier, I probably would have folded. So just the fact they're a little later position in the hijack.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the call is a compromise, and I don't like it if it is. It's more just A7's a real difficult hand to play in position post flop. So to play it out of position against a pre-flop raiser who has me well covered in an ICM position, I can't see what I could ever hit that lets me take the lead or lets me bet with it, or even call bets with the confidence I should have at this stage of the tournament. Well, that's where I'm thinking.
I guess just because we've got the ace, but I get what you're saying, because he's also got better aces than us in his range.
Yeah.
But in the hijack though, just if we just go through it with his amount of big blinds, he's playing 9, 10. He's playing all of the 10s. So he's playing Jack 10, Queen 10, King 10, and Ace 10. Offsuit, he's playing all of the suited aces. So he's got Ace 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There are probably more hands that don't have an ace in it than there do for the villain, possibly. I don't have to sense check that. But it doesn't feel like he's only, if he was much short stack, I would say that, you probably have to be worried about better aces more.
Yeah.
But because he's not, that being said, just because he might have less chance of having a better ace because of his big stack, he's also got a big stack and he well covers us, so he could bully the hell out of us and make us very uncomfortable post flop.
Yeah. One thing, it's only a tiny note, but the small blind who folded, is sitting with 90 big blinds, which makes the full 60 big blinds for the villain, like they're playing their full range. They're not adjusting to the effective stack, because I've only got 30 big blinds, so they should be playing a similar 30 big blind strategy. The villain in the small blind did affect their ability to play their full range.
Yeah, I like it though. I like the call. I think you've got to defend. If you're not defending with ace 7 from, you know, a deeper stacked hijack open, what are you defending with?
Well, it's basically I think the way my mind gets around it is that a raise here is the risk averse cautious action, because you will fold to most hands. It's not that it gives me the baton to go betting with gusto on every street. It's that I get more information for what I wanted, and there's less chance of me losing money in later streets. It's actually I'm betting knowing there's a good chance I'm folding, and it's actually saves me chips in the long run. It's even though it's an aggressive front step to free bet, I just feel it.
I mean, all right. So if you were to free bet, you'll be out of position post flop. So theory would say you need to bet something like 12 big blinds. If you're in position, you could bet more like 9, but you should be closer to 12 big blinds because you'll be out of position post flop. In which case, you've then put in 12. You'll be left with 20 big blinds in your stack, and there'll be 24. If he calls, there'll be 24. So you'll have an SPR of less than 1 on the flop. At that point, if there's a 7, if you say you've got middle pair with 7, or an ace does hit the flop, you got to call it off anyway.
It's more, it allows you to then control the betting because you're the aggressor. You can get away with 1/5 pot, and because you are the aggressor, and because that's a tricky amount, it's much less likely for someone to come over the top with pure bluffs. So when someone does come over the top, you just listen to it, and even though you've free bet and it might have cost you a little extra, you've got really valuable information. Someone who raises you leading out as the pre-flop aggressor is telling you, I've got a good hand in this place. I can't see too many people doing that with bluffs. They'd rather call it and see if they improve, so it's not a bluff on a later street because they've got position. So it means you can do these smaller bets, control the pot. You're much more likely to get to showdown because you're the person taking action than if you're the person sitting behind. You're checking, and your only options are check raise or call whatever bet size they're willing to put you on. And if they're on a bluff and they bet 3/4 pot, and you've got that middle pair, are you calling or are you folding? So you're now having to call a 3/4 pot just to call middle pair down to showdown, rather than a 1/5 pot, which actually gets you even closer to showdown because people are much less likely to come over the top with a weaker hand. It's that kind of,
yeah.
But the truth is, I don't like ace 7 off. Like I regardless of the ace, I see this as one of the hands I lose considerable money on. So I don't really want to play it. I either want to raise it and be done with it.
So is that why you put the extra 2 big blinds in, because you don't want to play it?
Well, this is it. I hate this hand, so let's just call and see a flop. Let's see what happens. Anyway, so should we get to the flop? Apologies for the digressing.
No, it's good. That's what it's all about. Okay, so the flop comes rainbow, Jack, 9. So we kind of whiff this, although we've got the, there's a backdoor straight, if that's even a thing. You have to pick 2 specific cards. Look, I don't know if this is right, and I don't know what theory says, but I know exactly what I would do in this situation because I've been in it many times before. There's no way I'm calling a bet here from the villain. So because I know I'm not calling one, my only chance to win this hand is to bet now. So I would just donk this, whether that's right or wrong. I'm going to be betting like probably 2/3 pot. just chuck 5 big blinds in, try and get it. maybe not even that, maybe even go like half pot to make it more believable we've got the jack, and then fold to anything over the top whatsoever. If he calls as well, I don't think I'd continue on the turn unless it was an ace. Then I would maybe check call. But yeah, my general thought process is Jack 9 especially. I've probably got more jacks and nines in my defending range than he has in his hijack opening range. Like I said, a hijack opening range is 10 jack as the bottom, so there aren't really any nines. So then he's only got the jacks, and there's 2 of them on the board, so it's less likely he has got that. This feels to me like a good chance to just try and take it now. Any aggression, get out of there. 3 big blinds, good bet. That's yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's a good bet.
This is very, very much a repping. I'm doing everything I can to say,
I've just hit a jack.
Ooh, I've hit it. I'm not going to let you get away for free. Which is in hindsight, I don't think that's the smart action. Even if I did hit the jack, you let the other person do the betting for you, and if they check behind, then it happens. So again, my bet's a bit small there, but I know why I'm doing it now. So I'm betting that because
I like it because if the villain has got something like ace queen or I don't know, ace 10 or whatever, and you bet, he could be thinking, yeah, you're just trying to steal this pot with nothing, and then
queen 10,
and then carry on. So that kind of works in the reverse. It's like, he could be thinking, that could be a line he's trying to make it look like he's got, when actually he's sitting there with a set of jacks.
Yeah, but even queen 10, I'd want to bring them along for the ride. I'm beating queen 10, king 10 maybe, king queen possibly. I mean, it should be smaller for someone like that to really want to come in, and they should be bluffing that anyway. But all the same, I bet 3 big blinds.
You bet 3 big blinds, and the villain folds. Bosh! That is what I'm talking about. Now, I think that was a good bet, and actually, I like your bet size. I think my 2/3 was probably way too big. That screams, I'm trying to steal this. Could you please go away? 3 looks like you want to call, and when it looks like you want to call, and he hasn't got any piece of the board, he must be looking at it thinking, I'm not going to fall into this trap. This lucky bastard's just hit a trip jacks, or he's sitting there with 10-9 or something that's got me beat, and I don't want any part of it. So yeah, great bet size. He's confident as well. Like he could call 3 big blinds. It's less than half the pot, and he's got loads of big blinds in his stack. But you just confidently made the right size bet, and he's folded. Yay, Tain.
So basically the review on that was the donk bet right? Was my confidence at betting low? So when you bluff, this is the thing that's very GTO, very counterintuitive, that it takes a lot for me at least to get my mind around, where the small bet, before you ever even look at GTO, you just think, well, if I'm bluffing, I can't bluff a tiny amount because anyone's going to call that, and I'm bluffing. So
I need to get them gone. Yeah, that is counterintuitive, but it is correct. I believe it's correct. If you had a jack or a 9 there, you wouldn't be betting big. You'd be desperate for someone to come along, and you would bet something like 3 big blinds.
Yeah. Would you donk? That's the only thing that's playing on my mind. Now, obviously, the villain thought, well, I'm so far away that I don't want to get tricky with this. Or they thought, oh, God, they've donked into me. That can only mean one thing, and that's that they've got it. But that was the only little tinkling. It's why wouldn't I have let them bet for me if I'd just hit the jack? But even maybe the thing I'm missing is that even if I just had ace 9, the villain could be so far behind. If they're playing something like 7-6 suited or something, they're just like, you know what, sod it, give it away.
That's what I mean, Tain. Sometimes you've just got to say, yeah, but even if it might be a bit of a readable thing what I'm doing, not everyone's going to read that way. And at the end of the day, like I said, if you're not going to call his bet, then your only chance to win this pot is to donk. And for me, that's reason enough. Take a go at it, put in a few big blinds. You might win that whole 7.5 big blind pot. And if you don't, just try it again next time. Maybe not against the same geezer.
Yeah, it's just basically trying to work out, am I ever donk betting as a value? And I think I could. I think there are certain times that a donk bet feels okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Even a pair of tens against.
Even things like you say, Queen 10, he might just think, oh, sod it, I'm not interested. You know, like if you've got Queen 10, he could be looking at it thinking, there's a bet. Yeah, he could have a jack, he could have a 9. That's well within a defending raise. He could have Queen 10. You know, he could have that open ended, and I just haven't got anything. You know, maybe he opened with, I don't know, 6, 7 of diamonds, which. No, that's a little bit below the range you should be opening, but he might be opening. Maybe if the table was a bit tighter, he would have done that. But there's probably loads of hands that actually he's just like, I'm just not interested in continuing. Like he might be bluffing, but he could also have a jack and a 9, so I'm just out of it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I do forget that I'd only been playing at this table for a few hands, so they did not see me do much. So there's every opportunity they think that I'm a fish, and a fish would come out donking every time they got that jack.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm happy to be that fish.
Play dumb, yeah. For sure.
I'm a fish.
I'm a fish. Look.
Yeah, cool. And that's it. The hand is over. I won. It weren't a particularly big pot, but it was more than I was entitled to.
Nice little hand. All right. Well, look, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, other than it feels like we're confident, a lot more confident with certain actions that previously would have either lost us a lot, or there's extra value that we're getting out of things that we wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Yeah.
I feel that the difficult decisions are actual difficult decisions rather than, oops, I've got myself in a mess. How do I get out of these clothes and into something clean?
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. Definitely. I think we're coming along well, mate.
Nice.
All right. Well, look, thanks for the listeners for listening in. We hope you've enjoyed the show. And we hope you've learned something. I'm certainly always learning something. So thank you, Tain.
Yeah, and thank you, John. Thank you for guiding me through some of my difficult, but perhaps not so difficult as I'd like to make out decisions. And
no, that's it.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been fun. I've learned things.
Till next time, man.
Nice one. Take it easy.